If you only have one level of sales, then you do still need to understand these things, but you will probably be wearing the different hats, okay? So you'll be both the SDR, the lead setter, and as well as the lead closer. And the important part about that is it's going to let you track what's effective, all right? It's also going to tell you who you need to hire first, and there's a calculator to show you who to hire first, because what we're always thinking about is how can you be cost effective, all right? So that is the general how it works. Now we talk about who to hire. Now there are 4 roles that we're going to talk about here. And again, based on where you are, you might be hiring different pieces of this. You might have a full-on sales team, and you might want to tweak how you're hiring. You might have just yourself. Regardless of that, you have to understand all of these roles, because if you don't have all of them, somebody is doing these things or isn't, and that's why you're not effective with sales. So the first is the SDR, Sales Development Representative, sometimes also called BDRs, Business Development Representatives. Sometimes they're called appointment setters. Sometimes they're called triage people. There's all kinds of things that they're called, but essentially they focus on that top of the funnel that we talked about. They generate and they qualify leads. If they are an outbound SDR, they are going out to the marketplace and they're saying, hey, are you interested in being a prospect? If they are an inbound, they're responding to an inbound inquiry, and they are validating that inquiry is actually a qualified lead, all right? And it's a very different skill. The prospecting skill and the qualification skill is different than the closing skill. Can you have a salesperson who does it all? Well, yeah, as a founder, you probably do it all. I have done it all for long periods of time as I was starting companies. So you can do it, but the founder is a different kind of person. No one will ever sell as well as the founder. So you can wear a lot of hats, and you get that credibility of being a founder, and so you can do that. But when you start to hire a group and you try to hire someone who's this general sales person, you're going to start to lose some fidelity in how good they are. Really, having a person who understands very deeply the initial customer contact and where they are, and meeting them where they are and holding them by their hand and bringing them to the conclusion that they want to do business to you is a very different thing from the actual negotiation and closing of the prospect. So the skills that this person needs: strong research skills, strong communication skills, the ability to quickly assess potential sales opportunities. And how are they paid? They're usually paid a base salary, small bonus, small commissions sometimes. So it's different from an AE or a full-on closing sales rep. These tend to be more base heavy. And if you want an example of a job listing for one, you just click here, and then you will get a SDR job listing right there. And you can just use that. Feel free to steal that. Again, the link to this document that you're looking at is below this video, and all these other links are in that document, so you'll have all of that. So that's what the sales development rep is. Now let's talk about the AE, also called a sales rep or a closer. Although sometimes when people say sales rep, they're thinking that it's a full stack sales rep, somebody who does both the qualification stage and also does the closing. So some people use it that way. I don't like to think about it that way because they are very different functions, as I've said before. The AEs manage the deeper stage of the funnel, so the narrower part in the diagram that we saw above. So this is really the negotiation, the closing of the deal. And this is a different skill set because they're really probing at a very different level, depending on what you're selling and how much it is more like a B2B sale versus a B2C sale. They're really thoroughly understanding client needs. And if this is a big enterprise sale, then that might be an involved process of understanding multiple stakeholders and things like that. If it is a more selling to SMBs, small businesses, you might really be understanding the psychology of the business owner you're selling to and working around that. But it's a very different skill set than getting someone into that sales appointment. And there's also a lot of finalizing sales and negotiating points and making sure some of the paperwork is getting done, and a lot of stuff that's very different from the activities that the SDR does. So the SDR is working on volume. They got a lot of them, and they're trying to quickly triage them, go through them, and say who's a sales qualified lead and who's not. At the AE stage, what we want them focused on, what we want these closers focused on, is having a full calendar of appointments who are qualified to buy. If a closer is spending their time qualifying a lead, that's probably a waste of time because the closers, as we'll see in a second, are paid very differently. So they're taking over once the lead is qualified, and they negotiate. And they need strong negotiation and closing skills. They need to understand the psychology of the buyer. They need the deep product knowledge. They need to know what the product is. They need to know what the offer is. And they need to know how to manage the customer, the potential customer as well. Comp varies. Now, it can vary a lot, so I'm going to give you some general things, and later on we'll have a calculator which will help you with all of this. So there's a base, a bonus, and a commission are the typical levers that you're working with. So sometimes you see commission only all the way at one extreme, and sometimes it's a big fat base with a little bit of a bonus, and sometimes you see something in the middle, which is base plus commission. It really varies a lot by industry, there's not one model. If you're hearing someone saying, oh, well, you can get anything on commission only, well, not necessarily. You're not going to necessarily attract the right kind of salesperson if you're offering a compensation model that is not normal for that kind of role in your industry. The number to focus on for you and your planning as a business owner is OTE, on target earnings. And that is what is the rep expected to earn if they hit quota. So what you're going to do is you're going to figure out how much money do you need to make off of this rep? And then that's how much revenue they're going to generate. And then from that, you're going to determine how much should they be paid. And there'll be some multiple of that. And that number is OTE, on target earnings, for the rep. And then you will stack it and decide, okay, well, of that OTE, how much of that is base and how much of that is bonus or commission or some combination of those. Or profit sharing, or however you're doing the arrangement. But the point is that you're going to have this OTE number, and when you're doing the planning, and as we go through these spreadsheets and things like that, we're going to look at the OTE number. And there's multiple ways of getting there, and you might incentivize people in different ways. Obviously, if you've got a commission-only structure, you might be more generous with commission than if somebody was guaranteed a base salary. Lower risk for you.